Across our planet, the conditions that test life's ability to prosper are wide and varied. Some regions are fertile and sympathetic. They provide abundant water and a benign and constant climate throughout the year. It's in such regions that the rainforests grow, full of life, diversity, colors, smells, and exotic forms. However, other parts of the Earth are vast and empty, where the conditions for life are extraordinarily punishing. In the polar and boreal regions, only the toughest can survive. Those best adapted to Arctic temperatures, scarcity of water, and even the absence of light. The harshest of wildernesses, where the unforgiving glacial cold defines the rules of life and pushes its inhabitants to the very limit. Stretching from northern Europe to the edge of Asia, and from Alaska to the far north of Canada, the planet's boreal zone, a vast region of trees, extends. This is the taiga. The last ice age came to an end a mere 12,000 years ago. A large part of the planet lay beneath a thick layer of ice, on top of which nothing could grow. But as the ice abruptly shrank back, it exposed enormous expanses of cold, naked land. This was the opportunity that the conifers, pines, fir, and larch had been waiting tens of thousands of years for. While temperate zones were colonized by broad-leaved trees, the polar regions became a paradise for pines and spruces. And with them came the animals best suited to withstand such a demanding cold climate. It is winter that rules here. A long season that lasts about 8 months each year. All who dare to dwell in these vast woodlands need to take this into account. The conifers of the taiga have evolved to tolerate wind, ice, and snow. The layout of their branches is one such adaptation. They're all downward pointing, so the snow can never build up enough to break them under its weight. These are, in fact, hugely successful trees. They make up the largest forest on the planet, covering the whole of the northern regions, more than 1,000 kilometers wide. The taiga may be uniform, boring even in appearance, but the inhabitants of these woodlands are very numerous and with many similarities. They are true survivors, adapted to the harshest conditions of an almost permanent winter. In fact, the coniferous forests serve to ameliorate the intense environmental conditions. Although bleak and inhospitable in appearance, the pines and firs of the taiga make the climate a little more bearable. They reduce the impact of the merciless north winds by about 25%. The inhabitants of the taiga have to bear everything that winter brings. The large mammals resolutely resist the very low temperatures, the snow, and the scarcity of food. Ravens are excellent survivors. They watch the comings and goings of the other inhabitants of the taiga closely. It may be that they provide the chance of a meal. Reindeer are driven hundreds of kilometers across the tundra by the cold to take refuge among the trees of the taiga. Their hooves are split into two wide and adaptable toes that act like snowshoes, allowing them to cross the terrain with ease. The hooves have a hard rim which protrudes and gives them the grip they need for walking on ice or hard snow. The struggle between life and death in the taiga becomes even more intense during the winter, so the recent arrival of the reindeer from the north is welcomed by the large predators of the infinite forest who follow their tracks in the snow. Migrating in herds that vary in number between 20 and several thousand individuals, the reindeer will only remain in the forest area during the coldest season. Finding food in this frozen wasteland is not easy for anyone. Not even for the athletic boreal lynx, with their thick, heat-retaining fur and broad, hair-covered paws designed for hunting in the snow. They too have to cross large, empty expanses in search of food. Trekking through ice and snow uses up a large amount of energy. The reindeer's hooves help them keep hunger at bay. Despite the depth of the snow, they can dig through it to find branches covered in lichens. These will be their main food for several months, supplemented with the bark of trees, pine needles, and frozen grasses. When spring comes, they will head back north. Such harsh winter conditions result in a high mortality rate during winter. Not all the inhabitants of the taiga will see the warm sunshine of the coming spring. The victims of winter's cruelty, from small birds to the reindeer, are scattered through the forest, to the good fortune of carnivores and scavengers. The last scraps gleaned from this corpse may mean surviving another day. Ravens make the most of those killed by storms and predators. Their activity and calls lead other carnivores to the carrion. Eagles are the first to arrive and compete with the ravens for scraps of carrion. Wolves, who depend on such cadavers to survive the winter, will not waste the smaller scraps left by the ravens. The snow may complicate life in the taiga, but it also has its positive uses, such as for cleaning the remains of a meal from one's fur after eating. In spite of everything, the tundra has permanent inhabitants, such as the fierce wolverine. The wolverine is the world's largest mustelid, a relative of weasels and badgers, and is the taiga's super predator. But even that does not stop the crows pestering it at mealtime. During the winter, ravens come together in large, noisy groups to look for food throughout the taiga. But the golden eagle has it even worse than the wolverine. The crow's persistent aerial harassment will drive it away from a potential meal. Meanwhile, the wolverine has found some precious booty. The remains of a reindeer. Wolverines are good hunters, but will also eat carrion, especially in winter. When there is food left over after eating their fill, they will hide it for later. These cold stores allow them to get through the toughest times, providing supplies for females with young in early spring, when food is still scant. The trees of the taiga also have their survival strategies. The needles of the pines and firs do not fall during winter. Conifers have been able to form the largest forests on the planet thanks to various such adaptations. Their leaves contain substances that act like antifreeze, and so they can withstand temperatures well below zero. Although there seems to be water everywhere, this habitat is actually a desert, since it's frozen for a large part of the year. So these leaves have evolved into needle form, just like the spines of cactuses. Amongst the trees, a multitude of birds find shelter and food that nourishes them in the depths of winter. The seeds of pines and of plants such as mistletoe, which is in fruit in this season. The spring is barely an improvement on the winter, and grouse come into heat while it's still snowing. As soon as the temperature rises a little, the leaves are ready to go into action. The pines must take advantage of the short summer to grow and reproduce at full speed. The spring is barely an improvement on the winter, and grouse come into heat while it's still snowing. Temperatures eventually rise, and the good weather seems to arrive. But wolverines do not rest in their constant search for food, day or night. Appearances here can be deceptive. The snow and ice finally disappear, and the taiga becomes a place of unexpected splendor. The creatures that live here have barely 4 months of summer in which to reproduce. Birds of prey arrive from the south and take up residence in the taiga. The booted eagle makes nests at the southern limits of the Great Forest. Its 2 chicks live in hope of a good spring. Many birds of prey nest here. The taiga is an immense forest whose tall, straight trees often exceed 30 meters in height, ideally suited for hiding your nest. Common buzzards reach further north. Only one of their chicks has hatched. Both species of raptor are witnesses to the important role the wind plays in the taiga. In winter, it is buffeted with icy intensity, but now is responsible for the dispersal of countless tons of pollen, thus helping the next generation of pines to flourish. And it's down on the forest floor that the extraordinary productivity of the taiga ecosystem can be seen. Millions of old pine cones cover the soil, and the rodent populations take advantage of this fact. Fallen seeds provide an almost limitless supply of food. But the pair of booted eagles has not been able to feed both its chicks. Only one has survived. Although this one seems to be in good health. The remains of its sibling have probably been carried away by red ants. These social insects are the guardians of the taiga. In their nests, there may be more than 1 million ants. Every day, they will catch over 300,000 insects, many of which attack the pine trees. The European honey buzzard is another raptor that visits the taiga during the summer. It comes here to raise its young on its very singular diet. As its name suggests, it feeds on the honeycombs of bees and wasps, relatives of the ants, which they feed to their chicks. By this stage of the summer, the booted eagle's chick has fully fledged and will soon be leaving for Africa. The storms of autumn are ever more frequent and temperatures drop daily. The buzzard chick puts up with the barrage of water as best it can. And after the downpour, it tries to warm up by exercising its wings. Within a few weeks, it needs to be ready for its first trip to the distant south. Autumn rushes on apace, and with it come the first snowfalls. The bears of the taiga realize the need for greater activity. The days are getting shorter as there are increasingly fewer hours of light. Temperatures drop considerably over only a very few days, and the nights, in turn, are now icy. It's around this time, if skies are clear, that bears patrolling at night do so below the lights of the aurora borealis. Some animals, such as these brown bears, need to double their weight before they can spend the winter in hiding, dozing in their dens. So it's time to eat as much as they can. Every day of autumn, they may consume up to 45 kilos of food. The gigantic brown bears check every corner of the forest, sniffing meticulously everywhere they go. But the storms do not make their task any easier. Luckily for the bears, some inhabitants of the Great Forest have already fallen. The bodies of the first victims of the cold will give them an extra dose of fat. The bear's metabolism at this time of year means that 75% of what they eat will be transformed into a thick layer of fat over their whole body. This in turn is converted into energy little by little during the winter while they hibernate. As the winter progresses, the wind stiffens and each snowfall is more devastating. Average temperatures now sink to 30 degrees Celsius below zero. But most of the taiga's inhabitants are prepared. Some, the weakest, will succumb, but the majority are ready to weather the storm. After all, this is their home, the largest terrestrial ecosystem on Earth, containing 60% of the planet's biomass. Silent, cold, dark and dense. A strange, frozen paradise. An infinite forest.